Ada had performed at the Green Opal for as long as anyone on staff could remember. 10, 20, 30 years or more, her voice had poured through the smoky haze and dripped from the faceted crystal lights, dollop by dollop, onto the upturned faces in the crowd. Her drink of choice between sets was a plum wine poured into a faceted crystal glass that matched the lights above. The wine was a special thing. She'd brought it all the way from a splintered, whitewashed church in the ruins of a town so small its name had long faded from the wooden placard by the side of the main street. It had also faded from the memories of the remaining townsfolk themselves. But more than the taste, Ada coveted the way the wine's rich burgundy tones reflected the stage lights and threw shifting sanguine patterns onto the lacquered stage and across the bar counter at the far side of the room. Occasionally, no, not so often as that, rarely, over the years, it had also reflected something else in the swirls of smoke exhaled by countless patrons whiling away their evening hours. There were red eyes like banked coals. Sometimes, the wraith-shaped contours of a familiar face. Once, Ada thought she'd seen the outline of an arm with a jagged scar crisscrossing the side and a twisted paw of a hand with sharp-taloned fingernails, just shapes in the smoke, she told herself. Nothing real. No harm in looking. Mr. C, he was long gone. Dead before she ever got the job at the Green Opal, no way for him or any of them to find her, even if the spirits had been watching. Which they weren't. Her line was as forsaken as the wine she sipped between sets. Ada was both lost and the last of her kind. There were no regulars at the club. The green glass and gray stone building crouched between the bustle of two small cities, one college, one industrial, and it was surrounded by nowhere at all, a vast swath of trees curled around it, with little fields on three sides to hold back the darkness of the forest. Their guests were so many autumn leaves, arriving in bright flashes of color and soon whisked away on the next breeze of fate. But Ada, she never changed. The same wreath of bronze-black curls framed her face. Those same dark, deep eyes held no gauze of age even after decades, and no wrinkles touched the corners of her lips. Every night, the same wine, the same lights, the same song, and the shifting, ever-changing smoke with its occasional hot-eyed reflections and familiar shapes. Decades of comfortable familiarity had lulled Ada into unquestioning acceptance of this routine. The Green Opal was her domain, and within it, she controlled every action, no matter how minute. Tonight, though, something was different about tonight. The first sip of her drink tasted off. A sour, sickly sweet tang coated her tongue and made her spit the mouthful to the floor. Spoiled? No, that wasn't vinegar. Ada slanted her eyes towards the fine dark hairs on the top of Rex's head as he knelt beside the bar and mopped up the mess with a damp dish towel. The wine's off, she said. Ma'am? Sorry, ma'am. Rex was soft-spoken, and his eyes were distant and blank. When she'd met him, he'd held entire universes in that gaze, but the years at the Green Opal had worn them smooth and dim. No new tales to be had there, and precious little in the way of emotion, unless she reached in to take it by force. Bring me another, Ada snapped. She tipped the glass bit by bit until a stream of wine poured itself into a red-ribboned puddle that splashed upon the floor. Flecks of wine splattered across Rex's hands and cheek. Yet he remained still, eyes on the dark liquid flowing into the crevices of the floorboards, and he did not move until Ada set the empty glass atop the bar again. Then, with wordless obedience, he mopped up the newly made mess and stood, silent and stone-faced. "Well, go on then, unless you've got something you want to say to me." Ada pushed the glass over the edge of the counter, her fingers splayed with disdain. "Ma'am?" "No, ma'am," came the soft reply. Rex caught the glass in one hand before it could shatter on the floor, and then he disappeared into the rooms behind the bar. Ada turned her back on him and gazed out at the chattering, mingling crowd.